Well, that sucked. It's time for the postpartum of yesterday's election wipeout for Republicans. It's not what people on cable news are telling you. No, it's not a referendum on Trump, and Trump's not a lame duck, and Trump moderate his stances. No, we'll blow that narrative apart in a second. And yeah, well, there's a lot to unpack, and we're going to show all of it to you, including what happened in New York City, which really is the biggest story of the night. Get ready for it. We'll shed some light on it, and you'll be smarter at the end of this program. Also, the views on CNN were fascinating to watch last night as Zohran Mamdani's fellow radical leftists actually, pulled off their veil a bit and acted shocked that he's really as extreme as he said he is. Van Jones was deeply troubled. We'll show you that. It was pretty funny. And yes, a man who fantasizes about the deaths of little children is now the top law enforcement official in Virginia. How did that happen? Who made that happen? You'll be shocked at that answer. All that coming up and a whole lot more right now. You're right where you need to be on a day like this, and I'm glad you're here. I'm glad we're together. We're brought to you by The Lion. My name is Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry. Thick and thin, good and bad, richer, poorer, sickness, health, all that stuff. We're together, and we'll get through it, I promise. And you're going to learn more about last night's election than you have anywhere else if you just stick with us for the next 60 approximately minutes. Thanks for being here, and thank you for subscribing to our channel. And thank you for liking this episode in particular, because I think more people could benefit from hearing what we have to say tonight. It's not all roses and sunshine and butterflies or anything, but it's reality. And it's actually a good dose of frank political analysis of what's really going on here right now so that we can make sense of it, move forward, and win. So give us some likes, give us some comments. Tell us how you're feeling today. Who do you blame for yesterday? I want to read all of your comments in the live chat in the on-demand video when we're done. So please do that, and it'll help our show while you're at it. Thank you. If you care about staying sharp and informed, make The Lion part of your daily routine. Published by the Herzog Foundation, The Lion covers the headlines that matter, from politics and policy to culture and faith, all through a common sense, values-driven lens. It's the kind of journalism that goes beyond the surface, offering the context and clarity today's news demands. Whether you're tracking big national stories or you want to know what's happening in schools, state houses, and communities across the country, The Lion delivers smart, well-sourced reporting you won't find anywhere else. Visit readlion.com, catch up on the latest must-read stories, and while you're there, subscribe to their daily and weekly newsletters. That's readlion.com, news that informs and respects your worldview. Last night, in the middle of Zohran Mamdani's Manhattan victory party, it looked like someone hacked his celebration. It looked like somebody put up a big Trump meme on their widescreen while all the dirtbag left-wing commies were celebrating. But we'll show you what happened and shed some light on what we think actually occurred there. But first, we go to the breaking news, which is JD Vance, the Vice President of the United States, just this morning put out his breakdown of what happened last night and what Republicans can learn. And it's informative. After all, he knows his politics, doesn't he? He's only run in 2 campaigns so far, and he's won both of them, for the Senate and for the White House. So let's start with him, shall we? JD Vance, Vice President, says, "I think it's idiotic to overreact to a couple of elections in blue states," which is true. Let's not lose sight of that. Democrats won in two solid blue states and one very solid blue, let's call it pink, city. If that's some harbinger for how horrible things are for Republicans right now, I'm confused. If anything other than Democrats winning, it would have been an upset. That's why when we've been talking about Virginia and New Jersey over the course of the last several weeks, we've been saying, wow, this could shock the world if Republicans win there. Shock the world. In other words, we'd be shocked because we expect Democrats to win. So yes, what happened last night is what people expected to happen. That said, let's walk down this thought path, shall we? Number 1, Scott Pressler, Turning Point USA, and a bunch of others have been working hard to register voters. I said it in 2022, and I've said it repeatedly since. Our coalition is lower propensity And that means we have to do it better at turning out voters than we have in the past. That's true. It just is. Number two, we need to focus on the home front. The president has done a lot that has already paid off in lower interest rates and lower inflation, but we inherited a disaster from Joe Biden, and Rome wasn't built in a day. We're going to keep on working to make a decent life affordable in this country, and that's the metric by which we'll ultimately be judged in 2026 and beyond. That is also true. It's amazing to me that Zohran Mamdani won in New York by screaming about affordability, affordability, affordability. Who's been in charge of New York to make things less affordable? And by the way, I've said it before, the government can only make things more expensive. If they truly do wish to make things more affordable, the best thing they can do is cut taxes and regulations, which of course is the opposite of what they intend to do in the Mamdani or the Cheryl or the Spanberger administration. So spare me the affordability thing. Also, a year ago, they were denying that things were expensive because they were protecting Joe Biden and his broken economy. So again, spare me the affordability thing. Number three, the infighting is stupid. I care about my fellow citizens, particularly young Americans, being able to afford a decent life. I care about immigration and our sovereignty, and I care about establishing peace overseas so our resources can be focused at home. If you care about those things too, let's work together. Yeah, JD Vance there is alluding to the fact that in this past week, conservatives and Republicans have been engaged in some pretty major infighting. A lot of name calling, a lot of finger pointing, a lot of cancellation attempts. And whether that had a direct result on the election or not will be hard to quantify, but it certainly sets a tone, doesn't it? That doesn't feel like victory. It doesn't feel like we're winning. So maybe we should focus on who the real opponents of our values and principles are. Okay. All good stuff from JD Vance. President Trump, for his part, as he invited Republican senators to the White House because, hey, it looks like Democrats might be willing to open the government now. Wow, that's amazing. It's almost like they used it just as a political ploy up through Election Day. He addressed those senators at the White House and had this to say about yesterday's results.
And last night, it was, not expected to be a victory. It was very Democrat areas, but I don't think it was good for Republicans. I don't think it was good. I'm not sure it was good for anybody. But we had an interesting evening, and we learned a lot. And we're going to talk about that, and I'll say a few remarks, and then after that, I'll ask the press to leave.
Listen, he's right. I don't think anything happened that we didn't expect, except New York City. A Democrat winning in New Jersey is like, a day ending with Y. It's always a shock if a Republican wins. And the last time that happened, it was Chris Christie, right? He won in 2009, right after Barack Obama swept into the White House with super majorities. And by the way, that same year in Virginia, which, yes, there have been more often Republicans leading that state, but generally speaking, it's a Democrat state. It's certainly gone Democrat in the presidential election since, 2000, I want to say, maybe 2004. But it's reliably Democrat, except this last time around, and also in 2009 when Governor Bob McDonnell swept into that office by almost 20 points. And that was seen in 2009 as a direct repudiation from the extremities of the Obama administration and the radical fundamental change that Obama was trying to inflict on the American people through our federal government, because he had the White House and he controlled the levers of power in the House and a supermajority in the Senate with 60 votes. And did the lessons of the 2009 gubernatorial elections in New Jersey and Virginia make Barack Obama chagrined in any way? Did it teach him a lesson? Did he moderate his tone? What did he do after learning the lessons of that horrible shellacking? He just jammed Obamacare down our throats. That's all. He didn't hesitate. He didn't stop. He told people to get in your faces and scream at you over Thanksgiving dinner about nationalizing health care. He didn't skip a beat, and he pushed through with his agenda. Because whether he thought it would help him win or lose in the future, he knew that he only had one opportunity with that kind of legislative force, and he was going to get done everything he could in that window because you never know when you're going to get it again. I'm pretty sure Trump understands that lesson too. So how did, as I said, New York City is the major story. How did it happen? New York City didn't just vote for a Democrat. They voted for the head of the Working Families Party. They voted for a man who identifies as a Democrat socialist. They voted for a man who isn't even born in America and has only been in this country as a citizen for a handful of years. And he's now going to have on-the-job training as the mayor. How did this happen? Who voted for Zohran Mamdani? Well, it's worth noting exactly who voted for Zohran Mamdani, because what happened in Manhattan, what happened in Queens and the Bronx and Brooklyn and Staten Island says a lot more about the people who live and vote there than it does about Zohran Mamdani.
Just getting a look at some of the preliminary numbers from the exit polls, Lindsay, and they're showing us that first-time voters, people who have lived in New York for a relatively short time, under 10 years, they went overwhelmingly for Zohran Mamdani. Those who are native to the city, those who own property, they went for Cuomo, but not by as large a margin. And I'm really taken by the religious dynamics here. Zohran Mamdani, according to the exit polls that we've looked at preliminarily, is poised to lose voters who identify as Jewish, who identify as Catholic, and still perhaps capture Gracie Mansion and City Hall and become the next mayor of New York. That's a dynamic that just would not have happened a decade or two ago. And his focus, his relentless focus on making the city affordable, talking about things like free buses and rent freezes, really seem to resonate with voters who overwhelmingly said the economy, their finances, affordability was their number one issue, Lindsay.
Did you catch that? Thank you, Newsbusters. You caught that, right? Native New Yorkers didn't vote for him. Catholics and Jews did not vote for him. Overwhelmingly, people who have only lived in New York for 10 years or less did vote for him. They all came to New York, decided it sucked, and then decided to vote for this guy because they thought he would fix it. I can't understand the arrogance of that, actually. By the way, the people who have only been in New York for 10 years or less that overwhelmingly voted for him, I'd love to drill down even further and find out how many of them didn't even live in the United States of America 10 years ago. I think that number would be shocking too. We've got more of a drill down on this. The religion breakdown is instructive, I think. It broke down this way. For Mamdani, he got 33% of the Jewish vote, 33% of the Catholic vote. They divide out Protestants and other Christians, and he still is underwater there by only getting 42% of that vote. Andrew Cuomo got the majority in all three of those categories. But then when you turn over to other religions, he got 70%. And for the godless heathen atheists, 75%. Instructive, right? That's the word I'd use. Instructive, educational. File it away. Oh, another data point on who voted for him. How about education? If you voted for Mamdani, you were more likely to have a bachelor's degree or an advanced degree from a university. If you have just an associate's degree, maybe some college, but not even a 2-year degree, if you're a high school graduate or you're no high school graduate, overwhelmingly you voted for Andrew Cuomo. Cuomo won in all of those categories. Mamdani won with people with bachelor's degrees or advanced degrees, which proves the old adage. You have to have a college education to be stupid enough to vote for someone like Zohran Mamdani. I guess they were all excited because he reminds them of their professor in college with all that power to the people garbage and such. So the educated, non-New Yorker, people who have just moved to the city, maybe from another country in the last 10 years, overwhelmingly just rocked the city of New York and put in this interloper from Uganda. And it's quite clear that of the young people with college degrees who are unemployable or having trouble making ends meet because they were promised that if they got their college degree, they'd be able to get a job with 6 figures and live in the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And now here they are with a cold dose of reality. Well, because they don't have jobs that pay their rent, they sit and watch streamers all day long. Like this odious individual, Hassan Piker, who was a big social influencer for Zohran Mamdani. At the party, by the way, he was not allowed into the VIP party, which is hilarious. But at the party, he said this about America and about New York.
Done.
What do you think it means that this guy ran as a socialist and anti-communism didn't work to stop him? That's big.
Yeah, I think we are in the heart of the imperial core. This is the country that defeated the USSR, unfortunately. And the reality of the matter is, there's a lot of antagonism. There's no class consciousness in the United States of America. It's one of the things that I try to address every day with my commentary. And I will say this. The conditions have deteriorated so much that everyday Americans, in spite of their lack of class consciousness, are finally arriving at the conclusion that perhaps there is an alternative out there. There is an alternative that focuses on them as opposed to the interests of the billionaires and the millionaires, as opposed to the interests of the capital owners. And I mean, you can't help but notice that. You can't help but feel at least a little bit of excitement around that.
All right, now you caught the very beginning there when he described New York and the United States of America real fast.
What do you think it means that this guy ran as a socialist and anti-communism didn't work to stop him? That's big.
Yeah, I think we are in the heart of the imperial core. This is the country that defeated the USSR, unfortunately.
Yeah. New York is the heart of the imperial whore, and the U.S. is a country that defeated the Soviet Union, unfortunately. And he's a trusted advisor to Zohran Mamdani, at least up until last night he was. Listen, we can open up our textbooks and our history books and talk about socialism and communism and the fact that it doesn't work and all of that. But you know what? There's something more fundamental going on here. All of the stuff he was talking about, you know, the deterioration of the culture and the classes in the city of New York, which, by the way, they all seem to be doing really well. They're partying. There's a lot of money flying around that room, I assure you. Where's the deterioration? I mean, I've seen the deterioration. It's the actual people who are doing the work in New York and not partying all night with these people. But all of the class conversation and all of the radical garbage that you just heard from this guy, yes, it's academia stuff. Yes, it's all this, you know, high-minded graduate school bullshit about classes and capital and all that garbage. But it's also fundamentally not American sounding. We don't talk like that. We don't have conversations about the classes here in America. The whole point of America is that we created a society and a culture and economy that didn't rely on the class systems of Europe. In Europe, they still talk about socialism in a way that's dreamy and respectful and wonderful because they still, in many respects, have those class systems that go back to the Middle Ages, the gentry. And that's really what's at play here, isn't it? There's something incredibly foreign sounding about the ideas and the plans that this whole movement has been trying to adopt. There's a reason why Bernie Sanders celebrated his honeymoon in Moscow. That's where you get your ideas and your influence. Again, not hammering against the socialism itself. It could be any idea from a foreign country, but either way, it's not Americanism at all. There's more examples. Here's his soul sister from Queens, AOC.
So many people who participated and were brought together by his campaign because they were not just tasked with defeating a Republican. They were also tasked with defeating the old guard of the Democratic Party that essentially led us to many of the perils of this moment. So he had a two-front war to win, which is what makes his victory so deeply impressive. And I do think that this moment, a lot of people who are willing to talk about party unity when it serves them, but not party unity when it serves everybody, it puts those folks on notice. And I think it also puts folks on notice that we have a future to plan for. We have a future to fight for. And we're either going to do that together or you're going to be left behind. And I think that is not a partisan issue. It's not about progressive not moderate. It's not liberal. This is about, do you understand the assignment of fighting fascism right now? And the assignment is to come together across difference no matter what.
All right, so now just so you know, when they use fascism, they're not just talking about Donald Trump. And when they use fascism, they're doing it because historically this is what they've always called their political opponents. Go back and look at the history books and the textbooks about the Bolsheviks and the Soviets and etc. Anyone who opposed them were fascists. They always sell their ideology by saying the bad guys are the fascists. And what AOC just said there was not a message to conservatives or Republicans. It was a message to Democrats. You're either on board and you're with us, or you will be left behind. This is who they are. The party of John Kennedy is dead. Like really dead. It's fitting that yesterday we did a segment about Nancy Pelosi walking away. She doesn't fit into this party anymore either. She's tried. Schumer's trying. But no. They will be left behind. They'll be steamrolled, in fact. It's also very instructive. As I say, these are all very foreign ideas. These are all very un-American, non-American is really the word I'm trying to use. I don't want to, oh, you're questioning their patriotism? Well, yeah. But more importantly, I'm just trying to educate and explain that all of this energy that you're seeing in New York from the people who supported and voted for this man, overwhelmingly people from outside New York and outside of this country, as well as this man himself who was born outside this country, and really, as his mother said, he's not really American. He is motivated, energized, funded, and inspired by very non-American ideas about class, about money, about social structures, about solutions, about faith, and about culture. And just listen to him.
So, Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, I have 4 words for you. Turn the volume up. We will hold bad landlords to account because the Donald Trumps of our city have grown far too comfortable taking advantage of their tenants. We will put an end to the culture of corruption that has allowed billionaires like Trump to evade taxation and exploit tax breaks. We will stand alongside unions and expand labor protections because we know, just as Donald Trump does, that when working people have ironclad rights, the bosses who seek to extort them become very small indeed. New York will remain a city of immigrants, a city built by immigrants, powered by immigrants, and as of tonight, led by an immigrant. So hear me, President Trump, when I say this. To get to any of us, you will have to get through all of us.
Okay, fighting words, right? And of course, Trump, I'm sure, will respond with his own level of fighting words, but understand the message there. It's his words. The emphasis on immigrants, the emphasis on the power and energy and everything that motivates what's going on here coming from outside. And again, let's be clear. I'm not the one calling them outsiders. They are the one wrapping themselves up in the glory of being an outsider. That is the virtue that they are bringing to the table and that they were celebrating. Noteworthy and important for us to learn from as we move forward with the next race, with the next fight. Also, I want to show you this thing that happened during their party, a big party, right? As they were waiting for Zohran Mamdani to come by, it looked like the party got hacked. You know, whoever was running the big screen there Watch what happens. Watch what happens on the screen when suddenly this giant meme pops up on the widescreen that says Trump is your president. And it's in the shape of the New York Knicks logo, right? Here, listen to the crowd. Sounded like a few boos, maybe some cheers. I think they were confused. Yeah, in fact, this is what popped up on the screen there. And it led people to think that someone had hacked the DJ stand there or the AV council at Mamdani's party. This is the logo. It was actually put out last night on X by the White House social media team. But we have the solution. He didn't get hacked. The party didn't get hacked. This is what happened. They were airing this all-new station in New York 1, on the widescreen, and this is the content that was aired on the big screen.
To Zohran Mamdani, we have the tweet from Tish James congratulating him as well. And then I want to show you what Donald Trump or the White House has just put out. This is an image with the Knicks logo, it looks like, or at least the coloring. Trump is your president. Joe Borelli, how are you interpreting this?
All right, so this is the channel that they were playing on the big screen, and then on the TV channel, they put the meme out there. So suddenly it was on the big screen all through their party as they were all celebrating their victory over the fascist Trump, who hasn't lived in New York in many, many years. All right. Now, for everybody who's sitting and watching or listening and thinks, wow, Larry, you're being really xenophobic. You keep saying that this is all outsiders and non-Americans, and these are not American ideas and not American language that they're using. And what's wrong? We are a nation of immigrants. Our diversity is our strength. Okay, all right, fine. I once again let you listen to him. These are his words. This was his speech, which, by the way, very effective, good delivery. I preferred this speech in the original Russian from the 1917 victory party of the Bolsheviks. But regardless of that, terrific speech, Zohran. Take a listen to how he identifies his political movement and the real heart of New York City that he just got elected by and for.
Thank you to those so often forgotten by the politics of our city who made this movement their own. I speak of Yemeni bodega owners and Mexican abuelas, Senegalese taxi drivers and Uzbek nurses, Trinidadian line cooks and Ethiopian aunties. Yes, aunties. To every New Yorker in Kensington and Midwood and Hunts Point.
Did you notice who he didn't mention? Couple of groups he didn't mention. And if you watch the beginning of this segment, you know that those were the same groups that didn't vote for him. Because you don't matter. You're not New York. Not anymore. That's New York. Again, listen to his words. It's his speech, after all.
Standing before you, I think of the words of Jawaharlal Nehru. A moment comes but rarely in history when we step out from the old to the new, when an age ends and when the soul of a nation long suppressed finds utterance. Tonight we have stepped out from the old into the new. So let us speak now with clarity and conviction that cannot be misunderstood about what this new age will deliver and for whom. This will be an age where New Yorkers expect from their leaders a bold vision of what we will achieve, rather than a list of excuses for what we are too timid to attempt.
Yeah, diagram that sentence and your head will explode, and just wait for all of the excuses that are going to come from him, because all the things that he's proposed, as you know, are impossible without cooperation from the New York City Council, who wants nothing to do with a whole lot of the disastrous, destructive ideas that he has. And, oh, that tax increase that's going to pay for all of it, he needs the governor in Albany to get that. And she's running for re-election. And I guess she has to choose. Do I want to raise everybody's taxes so I can harness that Zohran Mamdani energy and then lose the election upstate? Or do I want to actually be a second-term governor? Let's see what happens. Either way, there will be excuses. When he stops cooperating with federal law enforcement and the Trump administration, and the Trump administration decides to retaliate by withholding federal funds that are at the discretion of the president, yes, all of the excuses will be coming. And ultimately, I've seen this movie play out before. I promise you, when all of the plans and all the ideas and all of the programs and all of the giant central government planning falls down like the house of cards, they will just say, well, it really hasn't been tried effectively enough. The problem with it is that we're just putting our toe in the water. We need more socialism, and we need more socialists in these positions of power, and then we'll get it right. That's what they'll say. And you heard that he quoted somebody at the beginning there.
Before you, I think of the words of Jawaharlal Nehru.
Nehru, and despite his very cool jackets and trendy collars, he was a pretty destructive figure who preyed on the poverty and discontent and anger and sectarian fights that were going on in India to rise to power and implement policies that created more starvation and more hatred and more poverty. That's who he's quoting glowingly here in his victory speech. Listen, as an old Reagan Republican, a Generation Xer who's been watching things pretty intently over the last couple of decades, it was hard not to notice what our buddy Mays over on X also noticed. We've come a long way in our political rhetoric.
Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
We know big government does not have all the answers. We know there's not a program for every problem.
We will prove that there is no problem too large for government to solve and no concern too small for it to care about.
You see, if he had been raised in the United States of America over the course of the last 40 years, that idea that he just put forth would have been challenged many, many, many times, pointing to history and pointing to politics past and recognizing that here in America, that idea, the idea that there's no problem too big for government to solve and no problem too small for government to care about, is destructive. And it doesn't work. And it's not the American way. But once again, I will repeat, all of these ideas and all of this excitement and all of this power and all of the money and all of the political activity you're seeing surrounding this man, it's not American. The NRCC, National Republican Congressional Committee, with their eye on the midterms next year, they recognized this and they put together a new ad explaining to everybody exactly who the Democrats are now.
A radical left earthquake just hit America. The epicenter, New York. The new socialist mayor, Zohran Mamdani, built his movement on defunding the police and abolishing ICE. Now the socialists are celebrating. They call it progress. We call it chaos. Bureaucrats instead of doctors, social workers instead of cops. This is the future House Democrats want, and your city could be next. Stop socialism, stop Democrats.
It's true. Fact check, true and effective, and get ready to see more of that. You're going to see more of that between now and the midterms, number one, because it's the reality of where the Democrat Party is right now. And all you suburban moms need to be reminded of that, because you think he's just a really charming young guy with a really nice smile on his face. Isn't that the young man who wrote Hamilton? I think it is. You need to understand exactly who he is, what influences him, and, well, yes, it is coming to a neighborhood near you, because the one lesson Democrats learned last night is the only lesson they care about. Call it the Al Davis philosophy for politics. Just win, baby. And for the first time in many years, they had a win. And it was a pretty big one. And they're going to want more of that. And that means between now and Election Day 2028, 1 year from now, you're going to see hundreds of little Zohrans popping up And they're going to be primarying sitting Democrats right now. And they're going to follow his playbook. And they're dangerous. Very dangerous. But now we know. If you care about the direction of this country, and I know you do, you need to be reading The Lion. It's published by the Herzog Foundation, the national leader in Christian education. The Lion is an award-winning news site delivering sharp, timely reporting on what's really happening in America's schools, culture, and government. It's the kind of journalism that cuts through the noise and gives you the full picture, especially when it comes to the growing movement toward Christ-centered education. But The Lion goes beyond classrooms. It covers parenting and faith and freedom and the culture battles shaping our future. Just like its namesake, The Lion embodies strength and courage, standing firm in a landscape where too many have surrendered our children's future to the left's ideology. Visit readlion.com and sign up for the daily or weekly newsletter so you never miss a headline. That's readlion.com. Clarity, courage, and news that keeps you informed and equipped. CNN last night was tasked with real-time analysis of the elections in New Jersey and Virginia and New York City. And Van Jones, who's a pretty leftist, he was kind of shocked at Zohran Mamdani's victory speech. He thought that Mamdani was going to reach across the aisle and bring the city together and put out an olive branch so that we could all move forward now that the election is over and build a better New York City. And boy, was Van Jones wrong. We'll show you his reaction and Scott Jennings' pushback in a quick second. But first, good old reliable Alyssa Farah there at CNN. You know, the conservative commentator there. She's all dreamy over Zohran. Yeah, the conservative Republican in name only thinks Zohran's the bee's knees.
Why did you say I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I said this was very much for his opening marquee speech, a wholesale defense of socialism. And oftentimes people run as democratic socialists, but try to talk a little more about economic populism. Democrats have needed their version of like the left-wing Donald Trump, who could talk about affordability, but back it by their policies. This was, I mean, he was just rattling through the points that we'd expect while in the economic capital of the world, New York City. But he also did a remarkable job of setting the highest possible expectations for himself. This is a very young, untested gentleman. He was a state assemblyman. He's 34 years old. He wants to run an economy the size of Japan or South Korea here in New York City. And he's basically saying the most grandiose expectations of what he's going to do, ignoring that he has to work with Albany. He has to work with the state assembly to get the bulk of it done.
Okay, so she's impressed, and she had her smart girl glasses on, so you know she's serious. Moving on to Van Jones, who got to speak immediately after this radical leftist socialist victory speech, where he basically, forget about reaching across the aisle and trying to forge relationships with his political opponents. He locked them all into, I mean, you know that scene in The Patriot where they lock everybody into the church and then they try to burn the church down so that they all die? You know, and just in case, while the building was burning, Zohran had his, rhetorical army holding AK-47s outside in case anyone tried to escape. They'd mow them down, rhetorically speaking, of course. In a revolution like this, the guns come much later. Oh, but they're coming. They're guns. Okay, so here's Zohran Mamdani finishing his speech, and Van Jones was surprised, shocked, I tell you.
I think he missed an opportunity. I think the Mamdani that we saw on the campaign trail, who was a lot more calm, who was a lot warmer, who was a lot more embracing, was not present in that speech. And I think that Mamdani is the one you need to hear from tonight. There are a lot of people trying to figure out, can I get on this train with him or not? Is he going to include me? Is he going to be more of a class warrior, even in office? I think he missed a chance tonight to open up and bring more people into the tent. I think his tone was sharp. I think he was using the microphone in a way that he was almost yelling. And that's not the Mamdani that we've seen on TikTok and the great interviews and stuff like that. So I felt like there's a little bit of a character switch here where the warm, open, embracing guy that's close to working people was not on stage tonight. And there was some other voice on stage. That said, he's very young.
All right. I just find this hilarious, actually. This is not the Zohran Mamdani we all saw during the campaign. What happened here? I saw all those 25-second TikTok videos, and he was smiling and happy and eating a falafel and rice with his fingers. And now suddenly he wants to control the means of productions in New York? Where did that come from? These are paid political analysts who are supposed to watch the news and see what's coming. And really, let's be clear, what Van Jones was saying, a man who was involved in the Barack Obama revolution of 2008, what Van Jones is saying is, listen, dude, on election night, when you win and you give your speech, now's the time where you need to bullshit. Come on, man. This is where you have to look the American people in the eye and lie your ass off and tell them we're going to work together and we're going to go arm in arm and there is no red America or blue America. It's just red, white, and blue. You know, all the bullshit that Barack Obama said. Make people at least think you're going to work with your opponents. Make people at least believe that you're not the radical leftist that you obviously are. That's what Van Jones, I think, is saying, I suppose. Meanwhile, Scott Jennings was listening to Van Jones with that look on his face. And look at that split screen. That's perfect. And when it was Scott's turn to talk, he did not disappoint.
Scott?
Oh, are you saying he wasn't the unifying voice of a generation that you predicted mere moments ago? Axe, where was the man that you predicted would not slice and dice the? Look, guys, he started his speech by quoting Eugene Debs, who ran for president of the United States 5 times as the Socialist Party of America candidate. He repeatedly attacked people in this. No, I know my socialists. I keep a close eye on them. I work here. So here's the thing. He went after everybody that he thinks is a problem. People who own things, people who have businesses. He said an interesting quote: "No problem too large for government to solve."
Or too small, important.
And so when you think of the world that way, that every problem, no matter how small or how large, is something for government to do, let me just decipher this for you. Tax increases as far as the eye can see, which means the people who need to provide jobs to the young people that you say need jobs are going to flee as quickly as they possibly can. I think this was a divisive speech, and he clearly sees the world in terms of the people who are oppressing you and the oppressed. And he said the oppressed are now in City Hall.
Scott?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what we all saw. And Jennings wasn't done there. He had more observations. He was really on his A game last night, on a night where we need Scott Jennings.
Compliment your guy. He's the greatest actor you have. You know, he turned himself into a hood ornament for the poor and the downtrodden. He's a rich kid who is a great actor. He play acts.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I can understand why.
I
can understand why you'd be leery of an actor in politics.
I'm just saying, there's no other obvious Democrat. He has all the energy behind him. You talk about slicing and dicing the electorate. He's going to slice it and dice it in one way: oppressors and oppressed.
No.
And I want to find out if he has it in him to give it up. I don't think he does, because that's the energy in the Democratic Party. It's oppressors and oppressed. No. That's why the Jews in this city feel scared, because they know he has labeled them as the oppressors. That's why people who create jobs in New York City are leery, because he labels them the oppressors. That is the worldview of the energy of this campaign, and it's also the worldview of the energy of Democratic primaries across this country.
That's right. It's why he got so many endorsements, even from Kathy Hochul in New York. And it's going to come back to bite them on the butt. You have to understand that he is in burn the house down mode right now. Mamdani is now a national figure, and he's going to capitalize on it. You see, Zohran Mamdani cannot run for president. So what can he do? What can he do? What he can do is acquire power and create a political juggernaut. And Democrats are so terrified that they can't stop him, because they've got all of these, frankly, programmed zombies coming out of higher education who have been preached about the dangers and evils of capitalism and imperialism and America for the last couple of decades. And the Democrats who have been in charge of the major cities in America where these highly educated but brainwashed zombies live, who think socialism is actually a good idea, those Democrats who run those cities have dragged them down into such a politically correct woke morass that they're looking around saying, this place sucks. It's got to be capitalism's fault. This place sucks. It's got to be America's fault. It's got to be our founding father colonialist slave owners' fault. Whereas the rest of us living in normal America actually say, what a great country we live in, because our countries function, because we haven't bought into all of that garbage. But you see, the Democrat Party need all of those brainwashed zombies who live in those big cities. Look at the blue-red map, man. It's not state by state. It's city mouse, country mouse, right? And the city mouse is very, very blue. And without those votes, without that energy, without that political organizing, without that voice, without those votes, there is no Democrat Party. So this is it. And so now Zohran Mamdani is going to go national. And one more Jennings clip here, because I mentioned that Mamdani quoted Nehru glowingly in his speech. And Jennings delivered a bit of a history lesson there, because David Axelrod and Van Jones, again, don't really follow these things very closely. You can forgive David Axelrod and Van Jones, though. They worked in the Obama White House where, hell, forget about Nehru. They had people who were celebrating Mao. So, I mean, please, let's grade on a curve here, shall we?
You know, I think I just want to offer condolences to Chuck Schumer. Honestly, what I'm reading here in New York City is that AOC is going to be the next senator from New York after she gets done whooping his rear end in the 2028 Democratic primary. And for his Senate races in 2026, I see the energy in the Democratic Party tonight behind a socialist, and I see the energy in Virginia, Democrats looking the other way on a violent candidate for attorney general who says he wants to murder Republicans and their children. If you think you're getting rid of Graham Plattner in Maine now, think again. This is a terrible night for national Democratic image, given what is happening inside their party. Mamdani is an avowed socialist. It's not what people say that he is, it's what he says that he is. He's now the leader of their party. That's their energy, and Chuck Schumer's
He's the leader of the Democratic Party?
Let's swear. There is no. Who is the leader? Can someone tell me?
He's a life raft for Republicans who have to go on TV and get their asses kicked.
You own this now. You all own this now.
Oh, I love that, Axelrod. Oh, you're just using it. He's a life raft for you because you have some other talking point. Dude, you guys just elected him the mayor of New York City. Don't put that on us. How dare you use this guy's political positions in his speeches and his ideas and beliefs against us? Oh, yeah. Well, that never happens in politics. He's the leader of the party. And as I said a couple of weeks ago, it's not the Democrat Party anymore. They are Democrat socialists. At least you're not hiding about it anymore. Good. Come on out of the closet. You'll feel better about yourself. It's good. Have some pride, as it were. It's who they are. And it's always good to know who your political opponent is. And now you can plan accordingly. And I hope you do. If you care about staying sharp and informed, make The Lion part of your daily routine. Published by the Herzog Foundation, The Lion covers the headlines that matter, from politics and policy to culture and faith, all through a common-sense, values-driven lens. It's the kind of journalism that goes beyond the surface, offering the context and clarity today's news demands. Whether you're tracking big national stories or you want to know what's happening in schools, state houses, and communities across the country, The Lion delivers smart, well-sourced reporting you're not going to find anywhere else. Visit readlion.com to catch up on the latest must-read stories and sign up for the Lion's daily and weekly newsletters while you're there. That's readlion.com, news that informs and respects your worldview. Meanwhile, down in Virginia, not only did the phony Abigail Spanberger fool all voters in Virginia into thinking that she's a moderate when her voting record is just as radical as Nancy Pelosi, AOC, and Kamala Harris, but the entire ticket swept into office statewide. And yes, that includes Jay Jones, the Democrat nominee for Attorney General, who it was revealed just a few weeks ago sent violent text messages to a fellow Republican in the House of Delegates saying that he wished other Republicans and their children and police officers would be murdered so that his political ideas would advance. And that data point right there, the fact that he did that, was not disqualifying to a majority of Virginia Democrats. They were fine with it. Take a look at the sad reality of what your Democrat neighbor thinks about violent political rhetoric as a tool to stop Trump Republicans.
If you look at some of the questions over the J. Jones texts and that scandal from text back to 2022 and how this is affecting the attorney general's race there, possibility of a split ticket, we asked voters what best describes their opinion of those leaked texts. Almost half found them to be disqualifying. About 1 in 4 said they were concerning, but then another 1 in 4 said they weren't concerned or they hadn't heard enough about it. So we'll see how they cast their vote when those numbers start to come in.
We saw how they cast their vote, and Jay Jones won by 5 points over an incumbent Attorney General Jason Miyares. That's the reality. Imagine living in Virginia right now, knowing that your neighbors with the "hate has no home here" sign on the front yard is just fine voting for somebody who wants you dead, who wants your children dead. That's disconcerting, to say the least, isn't it? A little bit more analysis on that from Hogan Gidley from the first Trump administration.
51% of the people in Virginia just said they want someone to be their attorney general, the top law enforcement official, who said he wanted the Speaker of the House in Virginia to be murdered and Republican children to be murdered. Let that sink in about just how dark of a landscape that paints.
Yeah, it's a dark landscape, all right. Even darker, again, is the fact that not one Democrat on the ticket in Virginia or anywhere else in the country would call on Jay Jones to remove himself from the race. Yes, Jay Jones is the one who did it and said it and texted it and thought it in the first place, but every other Democrat thought that it was acceptable. That's the world we're living in right now. Let me just say something. They've kind of lost the moral high ground the Democrats have on a whole lot of things. First of all, it was only 10 years ago where if you called them socialist, they would get all uppity and in your face and defensive. That's not true. We're not socialists. We just think government has a role in making people's lives better. And now the actual socialists proudly win. And the rest of them all embrace him. And when asked what's the difference between a Democrat and a Democrat socialist, they cannot give you an answer. Try it. I've done it many times. There's no answer. Because there is no difference. It's who they are. But they're embracing it at least. They're not denying it. They're not getting defensive. They're not pointing fingers. They will lie about it a little bit like Abigail Spanberger did in Virginia. But they've sort of lost the moral high ground on that. How dare you call me a socialist? No. We will dare because it's exactly who your party is. Just look at who you elected in your biggest, most populous Democrat city. They've also lost the moral high ground on this whole idea of outrageous, disqualifying political rhetoric. You know, it was just 1 year ago, when the Republican nominee for governor in North Carolina was shamed out of the race. I mean, he stayed in, but he lost by 15 points in a state where Trump the same year won by 3 points, which means that Trump voting Republicans in North Carolina voted for Trump for president and then did not vote for the Republican nominee. And why? Because there were messages and statements on social media and text messages of a sexual and violent nature that were exposed. And they weren't even as horrible as what Jay Jones just did in Virginia. Now, that's North Carolina, one state away, and that was 1 year ago. And when that story broke, Democrats and people in the media, well, this is disqualifying. He cannot stay on the ticket. He cannot stay in the race. And yes, there were Republicans who called for him to drop out of the race. But this time around in Virginia, okay, lesson learned. Now we know how to play these things. They've lost the moral high ground there too. One other little bit of moral high ground they like to grasp onto that they've lost, and that has to do with racial politics. You see, Abigail Spanberger in Virginia defeated the woman who would be the first African-American woman governor of Virginia, a black woman, but she made the mistake of being a pro-life Republican. And so for that, Barack Obama came out and campaigned and demanded that black voters in Virginia throw the black lady under the bus and elect the white lady who is just fine with women killing their unborn babies. Forget about just fine with it. She celebrates it. She's an enthusiast of abortion. And at the same time, the NAACP in Virginia, though they did not fully endorse Abigail Spanberger, they invited her to their big glitzy conference and put out pictures on social media with all of their leadership celebrating her. They had her give a speech. They never even invited the black woman. As Rush Limbaugh used to say, it's not the NAACP, it's the NAALCP. The L stands for liberal. So they've kind of lost the moral high ground on that too. There's one other bit of the moral high ground that I'd like to blow up and leave just a crater in the earth in a moment here about the Virginia elections. I'll share that with you in a second, but a little bit more analysis on who voted for Jay Jones, where they came from, the people who are just fine with having this man as the top law enforcement official, the Attorney General of Virginia, knowing what he thought and outwardly expressed about violent repercussions and murder against Republicans and their children. The gender breakdown. Men voted for Miyares 58 to 40% in Virginia, but women 55 to 43 voted for the murder fantasy Democrat. Women are just fine with a man who wants to fantasize about your children being murdered and apparently also want to make sure that he's in place to allow you to murder your children too while they're still in the womb. At least they're letting you know, again, who they are and what their priorities are. That's the one takeaway from today's show across the board. No mystery here about who they are and what they are willing to do to get and hold on to power. Political ideology backing Jones. If you're a moderate in Virginia, you overwhelmingly supported Jay Jones. The moderates, which is another political fallacy that we can just sort of explode now, okay? The moderates are not moderate. People who self-identify as moderate are anything but, like Abigail Spanberger. And conservatives trying to win an election don't need to bend over backwards to try to soften their rhetoric or their policies to appeal to the moderates, because look who the moderates are. One other data point having to do with race. As I just mentioned, white voters supported the black candidate by the tune of 55 to 45%. Voters of color supported the whitest of all white candidates, 75 to 22%, which tells us that the attempts by Republicans to consistently have to please people in the media and leftists who say, you know, your candidates don't reflect the racial makeup of our society is really just bullshit. You don't need to worry about it anymore. Stop trying to appease. Stop trying to say, look at us, everybody. We've got a black woman. And again, she's a great person, Winsome Sears, but her race is secondary, way down the line. It's not why she's a good person, right? I don't know. Maybe somebody one day in the past said that we should judge people by the content of the character, not the color of their skin. I'm sure somebody said that. It rings a bell. When we consistently bend over backwards to try to accommodate the woke mob who demands diversity, look how we're rewarded. The Republican ticket in Virginia was led by a black woman immigrant. The lieutenant governor was an openly gay man, and the attorney general was a Latino. And the lily white Abigail Spanberger and their Democrat Party rejected all of them. So I've got an idea. How about we nominate the best candidates? And I like Winsome Sears. She's a good person. She's a good woman. She's a great American story. But I'll be honest with you, she's not a great candidate. I've said that before on this show. Oftentimes, it's the case where if you're a really good person, you're not a good politician. That's not a mistake, by the way. It takes a certain kind of person to be a really gifted politician, and they're not always great people. Certain exceptions. So what lesson have we learned here? Well, we can learn a lesson by listening to how they talk to each other about each other and when they express the lessons that they learned. Just this morning, Sonny Hostin, looking at this sweep and adding to the mix Gavin Newsom's gambit to play dirty with their fake, false gerrymandering to stick it to Donald Trump. And Sonny Hostin looked at all of that, and she came up with a really good lesson for Democrats, one that we should pay attention to.
Takeaway for me that I don't think enough people are talking about is what happened in California with Prop 50.
Yeah, we're coming to that.
Yeah,
We're coming
yeah.
to that.
That for me was a huge takeaway because that is the roadmap for how Democrats become the opposition party. You meet energy with energy. When they go low, you go lower. I am sorry, but that is where we are now. We need that opposition, and I think we saw that last night.
Okay, instructive in a couple levels. First of all, I don't think she meant to concede or admit or acknowledge that what Gavin Newsom did in California was lower than low, which it was. Gavin Newsom, as governor of California, put together this special election off-year proposition ballot initiative to specifically go out of their way to circumvent what California voters had already approved about their districting process with a bipartisan commission to handle it, and instead deliberately disenfranchised and removed the representation of millions upon millions of California Republicans, people that he's supposed to be the governor of. He looked at the map and said, yeah, we've got tens of, did you know that in California has more Republicans than any other state in the country? That's right. They have more Republicans living in the state of California than any other state can boast. They're still in the minority because of the giant population in that state, but they're there and they deserve to be represented. And Gavin Newsom, their governor, looked at them and said, they're pawns and let's sacrifice them for my bigger game board here because I want to be president. And so he bent over backwards, spent tens of millions of dollars, probably over $100 million of tax dollars for the ballot initiative itself, plus all the money that was raised, so that he could deliberately remove the appropriate party representation from those people in the House of Representatives and put in place his own hand-selected person. And we're the authoritarians. We're the fascists. We're the oligarchs. And at least Sonny Hostin admits that it was lower than low. But her lesson, the lesson of Democrats last night, is that when they go low, we go lower. Which, by the way, is pretty much always been their strategy. But they're saying it out loud. And I appreciate that. That's who they are. And that's who we oppose. And that's who we have to get that much better at defeating the next time we have a chance. It's a rough day, the day after an election like that. It's not easy to put together what our message is going to be for you, analyzing what happened. And you know that I try to make you feel a little upbeat. I want you to approach every single day in our society through the lens of politics or pop culture or whatever it is we're talking about with some kind of hope and some kind of upside. And it was hard. But I got one for you. I can't leave you with Sonny Hostin. You're still with me, and I love you for it. So I got one for you. I got one success story last night. I've got one thing that is a real glimmer of hope that could be something that we build on. Let's keep it in Virginia for a second. Here's somebody you didn't hear anything about. There were no national cable TV panel discussions. There were no TV appearances by her. There was nothing in any way on this program or other podcasts that ever probably mentioned her name. But she was running in Virginia. Loudoun County, heard of it? The most affluent county in America, and it's the Northern Virginia county that has been ground zero for the cultural, educational, and political wars of the last 10 years. And this woman, Amy Riccardi, ran for school board. Now, Amy Riccardi ran for school board in the deep blue Sterling district of Loudoun County that borders Fairfax County. This is the heart of the craziness of Northern Virginia. This is an area that went overwhelmingly for Abigail Spanberger, Gisela Hashmi, the lieutenant governor, and Jay Jones, the attorney general. She ran for school board there, promising to put an end to the gender mania in the schools, to get back to basics on education and the fundamentals of reading and writing, to get rid of the hyper-sexualized health curriculum in their public schools, and to get back to safety and security for the students. She ran against the woke mob that's been running that school board for years now. And she won. She won. And maybe I'm weird. Maybe I'm corny. Maybe I'm desperately trying to find something positive last night. But to tell you the truth, at the end of the day, for most Americans, if they don't live in New York City, whoever the mayor of New York really doesn't matter. And if you live in New Jersey, if you don't live in New Jersey, then clearly whoever the governor of New Jersey does, it's not going to affect your life. And I'll be so bold as to say, if you live in Virginia, if you live in Loudoun County, whoever happens to be the governor in Richmond, it may affect you with your car taxes and your registration fees and some other issues. But ultimately, I think Abigail Spanberger has such giant political ambitions that she's going to actually try not to be too radical because she wants to be on the national ticket in 2028. No, what's really going to affect you, what we've learned during the pandemic and during the critical race theory curriculum and the woke LGBT men and women's locker rooms and men and women's sports. And don't forget, in Loudoun County, those LGBTQ non-gender assigned locker room, bathroom provisions that school board had in place resulted in the sexual assault of a teenage girl. The people who are in charge of those policies, your schools, your kids' life every day from 8 a.m. till 3 p.m., that affects you. A motto that I've had in my public life as a political commentator since I started has been, what happens in your house is more important than what happens in the White House. It maddens me that we spent so much time, so much energy, so much money, so much focus, so much media time every 4 years on who's going to be sitting in the Oval Office, when ultimately, as important as it may be, what happens close to home really does affect your life in a much more tangible and fundamental way. It's how our society and our government and our Constitution has been structured. It's what our founders wanted. They didn't want you to worry about who was sitting in the White House. They wanted you to worry about the people in your neighborhoods that were affecting your house. That's where the focus needs to be. That's where the energy is. And that's my hope I'm taking away from last night. Amy Riccardi, she's my hope. She actually defeated a left-wing incumbent school board member, something really hard to do, someone who had the teachers' union backing. And she won. That's Davy and Goliath. This is in a county where Abigail Spanberger won by over 20 points, and she got 51% of the vote for school board. And that's a real victory. And for me, for now, to keep myself off the ledge, it's going to have to be enough. Thank you for watching today. What a great show. We had a lot of fun. A hard one, as I said, to put together and assemble, but we got to be here for you on days like this as well. So don't forget to like our video and subscribe and leave your comment. What's your upside? What's your takeaway from yesterday that's keeping you off the ledge? I'd love to hear from you and share it with our community. Let's get to your super chats now. Oh, it looks like there's a good number of them too. Thank you for that. Excuse me. What do you got there? Oh, if you're pausing, that means we've got a Rumble super chat. Yes, we do. $5 from Kasperius, who said, I can't help but think Kami Scamdani has aspirations for the presidency. Constitution be damned. Well, yes, as you know, he can't run for president. I mentioned that because he was born in Uganda, but maybe there'll be an effort to amend the Constitution to that effect. We shall see. Thank you for that, Kasperius. God's best friend, GBF, watching from the United Kingdom with the £2 super chat. Can Republicans shut down New York? Just a thought. You mean are you being facetious or real? No, they can't. Republicans, first of all, there aren't enough Republicans in New York. I've said this before. The way we got Rudy Giuliani, a Republican, to be the mayor of New York is that things got so bad that they would vote for Rudy Giuliani. And that was because of many years of Ed Koch and then David Dinkins. It was a nightmare. He had common sense ideas. He said, vote for me, I'll fix it. And he did. And that could happen this time around as well. It could. But I also worry because of the changing face of the electorate, the demographics of the people in New York, as we mentioned. Not a whole lot of New Yorkers calling the shots in New York anymore. Jeff Depew Sr., $2 super chat. Voting machines are going to be the downfall of us. You think there was a big voting machine scandal in these elections? I think this is more a reflection of the electorate right now in these jurisdictions. Could have been voting machines. I don't know. I didn't see those stories, though. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. GBF, £2 super chat. Proof of replacement theory. Thanks, AutoPen. Yeah. Just the last 10 years, people in New York who have not been there for 10 years ended up swaying the vote. Big time for Mamdani. Love USA, $9.99. There is no ICE brutality. They're enforcing immigration laws. Did you see how violent, aggressive those protesters are? How viciously they attacked ICE? There is absolutely no problems with ICE. I agree. ICE is doing their job, their constitutional job. Did one of the commentators or one of the speeches mention ICE brutality? Is that what triggered that comment?
I don't think so, but
maybe Mamdani might have mentioned ICE brutality in his speech. GBF, £2 super chat. Lots of self-hating Jews in New York, same as in Israel. Yeah. I tend to think that those are the Jews who do not actually practice the faith. They're ginos.
Don't love that word.
It does sort of trigger. GBF, £2 super chat. USA to send humanitarian aid to New York. Can always count. Good old reliable God's best friend. Thank you, GBF. Deb Longo with the $9.99 super chat. Larry, do you think the 25 million illegals that were planned to allow to come into our sanctuary state so they could vote like they did last night? Our solution is ICE, baby, and remove gerrymandering. Listen, as you know, at the state level right now, there are very few states that actually have enforcement mechanisms in place to investigate whether non-citizens are voting. Florida, I think, initiated one a couple of years ago. But ultimately, you always say, well, there's never any prosecuted instances of non-citizens voting because it's never investigated. But it needs to be. If you look at, go to Heritage Foundation, Hans von Spakovsky, he's their election law expert, and he's put together a whole database of just this happening. It does happen. It doesn't get a lot of news. And yes, in terms of gerrymandering and citizenship, one of the most critical things that can happen is there's two lawsuits that I believe the Supreme Court is going to hear this year. One has to do with anchor babies and natural citizenship if you're born in this country, regardless of your parents' citizenship status. I think they're hearing that case this year. And the case of counting non-citizens for the census. Those two things the Trump administration needs to push on. And if those two things, those policies that we're now living under are reversed, Deb Longo, those are the game changers that could make a huge difference. Richard Murray, $10 super chat. Damn, that scotch on the rocks looks good. Sorry, I got distracted by the highball. Reminds me of a joke. A giraffe, a squirrel, and a chipmunk go into a bar. And they all order cocktails. Highballs. And then the bartender says, well, that'll be $40. And the chipmunk goes, oh, shoot, I left my wallet in the car. And the squirrel goes, oh, my gosh, I left my wallet in the car. And the giraffe looked at the squirrel and the chipmunk and said, well, looks like the highballs are on me.
Ooh.
Richard Murray with a $10 super chat. A lot of New York Cityers plan to leave, and Americans leaving is why it got this bad. I hope someone can convince the ones left to stay and fight this clown. Yeah, you know what? Ironically, I left this out of the analysis because we had to focus on where we were going to sort of pick our fights today. Hey, I'm getting a lot of LOLs in the chat on that. That's a good joke. Come on. The highballs are on me. Ironically, when you look at the exit polls and you see that non-New Yorkers overwhelmingly supported Mamdani, people who have not native New Yorkers or have only lived in New York for the last 10 years. And that's because native New Yorkers left. That's what killed Andrew Cuomo's hopes of being mayor. And think about it, Richard Murray. Who drove those New Yorkers out of New York? Who made them all move to Tennessee or to Florida or to Texas? Why don't they live there anymore? Because of Andrew Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo's policies during the pandemic that drove people out. And you'll remember when he signed in the most radical pro-abortion law in any state in the country that allowed for abortion up until during labor. He said he signed that. He was so proud because this was going to get him into the White House because he bowed down and catered to the abortion lobby, all the abortion enthusiasts. And he bathed the State House in Albany in pink lighting because he's so pro-woman or gay. And I remember he was challenged by a reporter saying, what about the New Yorkers here who respect the right to life, who actually think that believe the scientific reality that this is the killing of a baby, a human life? What about them? What do you say to those New Yorkers? He called right to lifers extremists and said that they are not wanted in the state of New York. That was Andrew Cuomo. Look it up. So there are good New Yorkers who left that state because of Andrew Cuomo. And because they weren't there when he needed them, that's why he lost the election. Maybe I should have included that in the segment. Kevin, you can just clip that. That's brilliant analysis. Patty J. Jenkins with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Larry, for having this insightful channel. Love you. God bless you always. Prayers and dripping heart. Thank you, Patty J. Jenkins, for watching and that very generous super chat. We love our show, and we're very happy to have this channel for you. GBF, £2 super chat. He forgot to mention Somali brothers and sisters. They all live in Minneapolis. Otherwise, he would have. He did get Senegali in there. Stumble Boots with the $2. I'm used to you being first place, Stumble Boots. You're cool, too. Your freakishly long-armed zombie avatar notwithstanding. GBF, £2 super chat. We go lower. Can we count on your vote? That's the bumper sticker. That also works in some of the gay neighborhoods in New York, but it's a whole other story. Thank you for that. Beth Walburn with a $5 super chat. I really like your rustic appearance. Does that mean I shouldn't shave? You mean my this? Is that what she's referring to? Thank you, Beth. Is this rustic? Is that what you call this? Love USA $9.99. I'm shaving today, by the way. I mentioned every time I let the scruff go, and people are like, "Oh, I like the scruff," and I'm like, "Yeah, Meredith hates it. She absolutely hates it, and I will be shaving. I think today." Love USA $9.99 super chat. All California Republicans should move to swing states. Living cost is low. You can find tons of jobs there. You can keep these states red forever. They are the only states that matter. It's a strategy. It is easier to move now than it used to be in this country. Although I've sort of stayed. No, that's not true. But no. Because, well, I mean, 15 years ago, I moved from California. But Lugan. Hey, Lou. $1.99 super chat. Last call for likes. Subscribe to TSM Larry. You're very YVW, Lugan. That's right. It is the last call. Like and subscribe. Oh, no, it's not the last call. Beth Walburn with a $5 super chat. Busy mean day means a super chat extravaganza. This is a bit of a super chat extravaganza. It's like a whole new segment. Should we just cut out the super chats and have it be a standalone video segment, Kevin?
We could. You think people would watch that?
Let's try it. Nothing ventured. It's like an after show, isn't it? We've turned this into like an after show. It's like the cocktail party after our show. Good show, everybody. Good show. Good show. Beth Walburn with a $2 super chat. I meant busy news day. Oh, I got what you meant. I got what you meant, but I appreciate the additional super chat. Another Beth Walburn, $5 super chat. Sorry I missed the first 5 minutes of today's show. Just needed to tell you that. You know what? We waited and we waited and we waited, but then we couldn't wait any longer, Beth. Thank you. Gosh, Larry. 11 Scott Elliott, $5 super chat. Hi, Larry from Scott and SB. We love your show and enjoy watching you daily. Thanks for all you do. Smiley face. Well, thank you, Scott and SB. Now, is SB... Now, I'm going to get in trouble here. First of all, SB is an award that the that ESPN gives out to sports figures. I'm guessing that Scott is not a winner of an SB and has an SB on the sofa next to him while he's watching. SB is not a traditional name, though, is it, Kevin? Is that short for Esperanza or something? Or
why are you asking me?
You're hipper than I am. Do you think that? So I was my instinct was that SB is a pet, but that could get me into big trouble. Oh, is SB your puppy? And if it's his wife, then I'm screwed, right?
Yes, I think you've screwed yourself.
It's over. Well, no, because I didn't actually say it. I'm explaining that I was going to say it, but I didn't. And so that's a free pass, isn't it?
You know, the deep dives into your inner monologue that we take at the end of these shows is really quite something.
Don't you like crawling into my subconscious and figuring out why I think the way I think? Yes, SB. Well, thank you, Scott, and thank you, SB. Whoever or whatever you are, SB. Thanks for watching today. We will be back tomorrow. Tomorrow is another day, my friends, and we're going to be fine. We got each other. And remember, what happens in your house, more important than what happens in the White House. Go get involved and figure out how you can help defeat some crazy leftist on the school board in the next election. You can do that. You can do that. We just saw a miracle happen. You can do it in your neighborhood. We win enough school board elections. That's how you build a successful political coalition. It all starts from the bottom up. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow. Same time, same place. My name is Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry.